This was the worst idea I've ever had!
This was the worst idea that I've ever had!
Mega Man is easily one of the most iconic platformer series in the industry, introducing player choice and how players want to handle the bosses, and also famous for kicking the players in the femur constantly.
The series is also known as Rockman in Japan, which is fair because, the series is also known for rocking out.
While I have played the X and Zero parts of the Mega Man franchise, I actually have very little experience with the classic series, only haven't played Mega Man 7, and I wanted to talk about the Mega Man series properly, so I decided to get the Legacy Collection and try the games out for myself. Now I don't know how much this will matter as, again, I've only really played the Legacy Collection of every single one of these games, but I will be playing the Legacy Collection versions of these games. That sounded redundant. Well, but the point is, you may realize soon in the footage that I'm using the Legacy Collection because of my very nasty abuse of the rewind feature during half of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I don't know, man, these games can be difficult and I have 6 of them to cover, I got a schedule to follow. Okay, so what's the deal with Mega Man 1? You see, Mega Man has a very simple story. I'm not elaborating any further, the game doesn't tell you what the story is, what do you want me to tell you?
I love games 3 times older than me.
Dr. Light and Wily were college buddies that had a falling out, and now Wily wants to sink revenge against Light and take over the world. I feel like we missed a couple of steps here. There's marriage counseling. I mean, it's quite a simple story, really. It's just a petty debate between old men. Alright, here's the thing. The classic series was never known and will never be known for its story because they play out as mediocre anime movies in which half of the things that are notable of said movie is the action. So how about the action, eh? Or you know, the series is known for its gameplay. In the case of Mega Man, Mega Man 1 is absolutely brutal when it comes to difficulty and is easily the hardest in the classic series. Even if the other games can have some moments of bull themselves, but we are not there yet. We are only in page 1 out of heart. Okay, the main structure of Mega Man games is that you have a number of stages with Robot Masters to defeat, followed by the Wily stages. Every boss has a weakness to another boss's weapon, however it is up to a player to figure out what the weakness of the boss is. Do you catch that? Great, so the boss weapons will also be useful in traversing the environments around you as they can more easily defeat enemies and allow you to get some extra power-ups that seem optional but really are not. God! Alright, so I don't think I called this out in my review just yet, but just in case I didn't, I'm going to call it out right here, right now. There's this weapon that I'm going to call it the bridge tool because I don't remember what it was actually called in the game, but to be honest, I don't really care. This weapon, you know, it's a really useful weapon. It allows you to like it consumes energy, but it makes a bridge that makes it easier for you to skip some platforming sections that may be a bit too difficult for you. You know, that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. If you want to go for that tool, fine. If you don't, you can still play the game, except for the fact that the thing is actually mandatory, but you're not going to realize that until Wily 1, where the game is like, the exit's over there. Come back later, buddy. Now back to a regularly scheduled review. The stages will have you explore different places corresponding to the theme of the boss itself, like a place full of ice, an electric place, a fireplace. I don't really have any idea what they are. What the hell is Cartman doing here? If you actually wanted to make a stage based on cutting, you make a stage based on arts and craft, not on the Florida man throwing scissors to people on the street. The stages all have their standout moments that make them more memorable, like avoiding the electroshocks in the Mega Man stage, or having to move carefully in Fireman's stage. From the top of my head, I can at least remember a single moment from each stage, and I feel like the developers did a good job on making each stage memorable. Where in this stage, a lot of platformers had levels that felt very identical to each other. Now when it comes to playing the game, Mega Man is a very precise character most of the time, except for the small instances where he slips and slides like his feet are made of roller skates. He can jump, shoot, and look surprised while jumping. The game is very simple when it comes to the controls themselves. It's the way in which the levels are designed where the difficulty and the complexity come in.
This series is absolutely not friendly to newcomers. It will beat you down and underground until you learn.
Life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
The game is going to hit you from up, down, all around. It's going to tell you good luck, asshole, because we're not going to help you. Bottomless pits, you got them. Enemies appearing out of thin air like they're made of black magic. Of course, buddy. Here you go, little Timmy. And there's 7 of them. Alright, listen. I hear you. You're having a tough time. You'll losing a lot of lives. But hear me out. How about we do a platforming section that is so insanely precise? You gotta be pixel perfect, man. And failing to do so is going to result in your demise.
Good luck.
No. But let's not forget the bosses that just have the most complicated, unreasonable, unstoppable patterns whatsoever. When they hit you, they go. And another funny quirk of the game is the fact that the enemies are reconstructed on a molecular level the moment that they leave the screen. They could have been disintegrated to an atomic level, but disappearing off the screen is equivalent to wishing them back to life with the goddamn Dragon Ball. The game is obviously a product of its time. However, when you're playing this in 2022 as a casual player, I feel like in the modern video game industry, Mega Man 1 is simply just not as well made, not as tightly programmed. I don't know what other description to say, and I feel like you'll be having a lot more fun with 2, 4, or 5, or realistically speaking, any other game in the series that came after it that isn't 3. A lot of the issues that it has are the things that were resolved there in the later games, making the games as a whole way more enjoyable. Even all of the good qualities Mega Man 1 had have been improved in later games. The first game has great controls, but later games have made them even better, and they add new items, and they make better weapons, and all of that stuff. The graphics look great for the NES, however every single game on the NES will have the same art style and have it slowly evolve, making it better, so there's really no reason to come back for it if the graphics are what you're looking for. The music is great. Mega Man 1 overall is an okay game. It's a decent out of 10. It's a Mega Man 1 is mid. It's definitely not great and it has too many bullshit balls to the walls, backflip of the high tip, head against the better sections to call it a good first entry for newbies. However, it still has a lot of good qualities. The boss weapons are actually really good, and you'll be surprised by how many of the later games screw that up. It's just that the game has a lot of gotcha moments, and these can be extremely brutal and honestly downright insulting because the game doesn't prepare you for them and it laughs at you like a maniac for not figuring it out what to do earlier. I'm still not over that bridge building weapon, Lego ass. Well, color me impressed because Mega Man 2 gives you an explanation of what happened in the first game while also telling you that Wily is back for seconds and with his own goon squad. Off to a great start, honestly. I can tell how much I like this game more than the first, in fact, because I beat this game in one sitting compared to this first game that took me a whopping sitting plus a dinner break. Okay, maybe I was exaggerating. But what is no exaggeration is that Wily came extra prepared. He brought an additional 2 Robo Masters, so now we have 8 instead of 6. More fun to be had! The main additions in this game are the A-Tanks, which are blue cans that restore all life when consumed, and the extra items that Dr. Light gives you, which are promptly called Item 1, Item 2, and 3. Well geez, they ran out of ideas with that thing, didn't they? It's like calling your channel a phrase or something like that. Who'll be stupid enough to do it? The level design is extremely fun. It focuses less on the infinite shades of bullshit the previous game had and focuses more on the moment-to-moment platforming and giving the player a fair challenge. Not as hard as 1, mind you, but still making you jump out of your skin occasionally if you're not prepared. There is also a lot more interesting hazards that you have to avoid in conjunction to the many new faces that you have to see throughout the game. For example, sometimes you have to go through conveyor belts and avoid falling chandeliers, I think that's what they are, or having your reflexes tested by having to avoid one-hit lasers that come at you at absolutely insane speeds. Come on, Mega Man, run away, run like you're running from the IRS, because there's nothing more fearsome than that. Wily ain't got nothing on the IRS, and they got nothing on tax evasion. A lot of the challenges are then topped off by very fun bosses that give you very good weapons like the Crash Bomb, the Leaf Shield, or Jesus himself. The Metal Blade is the most overpowered weapon in Mega Man period. Out of all of the series and spin-offs, none have as broken a weapon as Mega Man 2 does with the Metal Blade. The weapon has such a vast amount of ammo, can aim in multiple directions, does a lot of damage against normal enemies, and even some bosses, and could probably cook me lunch faster than I could, I don't know. I used the Metal Blade throughout nearly the entire playthrough, not because the other weapons were necessarily bad, not that they were lacking, but because the Metal Blade was just so good that I barely found any use for another weapon. Hell, I'm pretty sure I used the Metal Blade more than the normal Buster at some points. The only instance of backwards level design that I could probably think of would be the Wily stages. These stages feature a lot of precise, nearly pixel-perfect moments. Not quite pixel-perfect, but definitely way too precise for the average player, and definitely goes against the fair difficulty curve that Mega Man 2 was going throughout, leading to the Wily stages. Especially when it comes to the cheap bosses like this. What are these, mines? Cameras? Things that try to kill people when you try to find Wily search history. Apart from that, the game is an absolute step up in the visual department, with more detailed backgrounds and less slowdowns compared to the first game. Couple that with the absolutely godly soundtrack that makes me that 1K assignment where he levitates, and I can say that this game is absolutely fantastic. No ifs, ands, buts, coconuts, no nothing. This game is absolutely great.
The only thing that the next 9 entries need to... We still have 9 of these more. The only thing that the next lineup of games needed to do was to do the same thing that Mega Man 2 already did, yet a bit more fair, a bit more refined. So simply make another set of very tough, but at the same time very fair stages, you know, a couple of Wily stages and stuff. Maybe add a couple of gimmicks here and there to make things more different, and voila, you have the next couple of Mega Man entries for the next couple of years, and we're all good. Clearly someone didn't read the memo because we got Mega Man 3! Electric Blue.
This game makes me mad, but it's not because it's necessarily a bad game, it's because it had everything to be the best one in the series, and it absolutely fumbles the bag in nearly every single department. You get a new character in Proto Man, new power-ups, the best visuals so far, you got the 8 Robot Masters plus the rematches with the previous Robot Masters from 2, kick-ass music. This game could have easily been the best Mega Man yet, but they screwed it up in so many ways that I can't help but like it I can't help but like it less than Mega Man 1 because of the issues that it has. Mega Man 3 is considerably harder than the second game. However, unlike the first game that was difficult because they had no idea what they were doing, or the second game that was difficult because they actually put fair challenges that actually made the player think and have to use some skill in those thumbs of theirs, Mega Man 3's difficulty is more so from the fact that enemies just appear and completely jump you like if you were walking in an alleyway with an active Romy sign. Stab me in the throat! Enemies will be constantly thrusted upon you in the worst of places, and oftentimes will be too fast for you to react properly, and other times will be too spongy and have attacks that will guarantee that you take damage. Guaranteed! Because those things are hard to avoid, which isn't helped by the fact that the enemies feature more complex and hard to tell patterns, which becomes more obvious with some of the bosses. Because seriously, I don't know how you're supposed to tell their pattern. Sorry for a bit! Mega Man 3 is like if you made a Kaizo Mega Man 2 but wanted to make it as difficult as Mega Man 1. I don't know what other way to describe it. It features some of the great platforming from Mega Man 2, yet it features the enemy design of Mega Man 1. It's the best of both worlds! It also doesn't help that the enemies are just too high or too low to hit them comfortably, and surprisingly enough, the boss weapons are not that much help. I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do with Top Man's weapon? Lovely. I mean, seriously, man, am I supposed to destroy robots with this, or am I supposed to win a dance competition with this sick tricks that I'm showing off? The game does introduce this slide mechanic in which... well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, is it not? It's a slide, you're not scoring a goal in soccer. While the slide mechanic is quite a pleasant addition to the game, I really do wish that they allow you to shoot while in the slide, because the ability becomes a lot less appealing when I have to deal with the small enemies I already have a lot of issues dealing with while not being able to hit them. Seriously, what the hell is up with these small bastards? Why are they the hardest enemies in the game? The game is also weirdly stingy with feed things. I had a lot of them in their games, and even in 2 I had more than enough to get me by. Yet in 3 I could probably count the amount of times that I had a knee tank with one hand. And I don't know if that was to try and make the game more difficult at the expense of fair design, maybe they just hate humanity, maybe they're demons that suck on the anger and frustration of players, and that's just what they needed, but it definitely worked. That's my point. It definitely worked in making the game more difficult. Because I wasn't born in the 1980s, 1990s, whatever, I don't know what the exact consensus was for Mega Man 2's difficulty back in the day, but I have to assume that Capcom received a lot of messages addressing the lower difficulty in 2, and wanted to make 3 a more difficult adventure, which they certainly did, but you know how Mario 1 was too easy, so they made the lost levels, which was pure dumb bullshit?
Hey Capcom, Nintendo called. They want their stupid choices back.
I don't know if the right term to use for Mega Man 3 will be artificial difficulty, but taking into consideration the fact that it feels like bad Mario Maker levels at times, it definitely is along those lines. There are definitely some high points in the adventures, not entirely awful. I do remember enjoying the raw platforming a lot and found the levels themselves, discounting the enemy placement, to actually be quite fun for the most part. But seriously speaking, the enemy design really throws the game down a couple of tiers, mainly because the enemies are just riddled throughout the entire stage. The game looks better than both games combined, and that's pretty good and all. The level themes are also really creative, and I do like them. The problem is that this comes at the cost of the smooth gameplay. The game slows down quite a lot more than the previous games, which is something that I forgot to mention because I didn't find it quite as annoying in those games, but I do find it a bit more annoying now, because in case you didn't enjoy Mega Man 3, maybe you'll enjoy Mega Man 3 frames per second a bit more. I don't know, you tell me. The music is good as always, but I mean, that's a given, and personally I just prefer Mega Man 2's OST a bit more than I do 3's, and I think that's just my overall feelings towards 3. It's not awful, it can still be enjoyed, and I'll probably recommend it to people that really like Mega Man games. However, I would rather play and recommend 2 any day of the week over 3. If Mega Man 2 is the siblings that everyone likes, Mega Man 3 is the sibling that ate glue.
Yeah, unfortunately I won't replay Mega Man 3 anytime soon. However, saying that I will replay a game is a thing that I will be saying for Mega Man 4. I still have another 3 of these bastards!
Okay, so Mega Man 4, it's actually pretty good. Hell, I'll argue that it's the best game so far. I love it that much. The slide is mostly used as an evasive option more than it did last game. However, it will be used a lot by the player to move around the enemy fire, and used with the new Mega Buster, Mega Man is starting to build quite a sizable moveset in here. We're simply holding down the charge button. Mega Man will unleash a powerful shot that does a lot of damage to enemies and bosses alike, with the only downside being that you have to wait, so you're vulnerable for a bit. However, the risk is certainly worth it thanks to how much damage the charge shot does. It's, as a matter of fact, way better than the weapons in Mega Man 4. I mainly abused the rain screen nuke and no, well, apart from that, it was Mega Buster for the win. When it comes to the levels, I feel like they were a huge step up in terms of theming and presentation. 3 was already very pleasing visually, but this game builds up upon that and manages to make the game look even better and keep a mostly consistent frame rate to boot. The game is also back to the overall fairness of Mega Man 2. Many of the levels are quite challenging, but never did they feel like they were constantly hitting me to the point of frustration. The gimmicks in the levels are also just as interesting as in Mega Man 2. Dotman stage will have you do the platforming while being careful of the heavy rain that pushes you back, and then have to deal with running water that pushes you forward. In Dustman stage, my favorite Uruguay YouTuber, you're essentially in the robot graveyard and have to avoid being crushed, and so on and so on. It's really cool. The game is simply fun. It does everything that it needs to do well, and there are only a few elements that don't pan out as a whole, like the boss weapons. But honestly, apart from that, the game is fantastic. Although as this review goes on, I struggle to say more and more original things for the games, which is my segue to talk about the slowly declining sales of the Mega Man series. The first Mega Man game sold really poorly, at least in territories outside of Japan, and I can't exactly fault the public on this one. I mean, what else do you want to say here, apart from the fact that this looks like the kind of person that will cosplay as Mickey Mouse and lead kids to white bands? I feel like it says a lot that Mega Man 2 is still, after 30 years of the series existing and multiple spin-offs afterwards, the best-selling game in the entire series. Literally after Mega Man 2, the only thing that Capcom was able to do was go downhill from here, and it definitely has to do with the fact that Capcom did a tremendous job in making all the games feel as similar as each other as possible. Out of all of the NES games, Mega Man 5 is easily the best Mega Man yet. I'm not going to say that it's the best Mega Man in the series as a whole, as I still have to play 7 through 11. 7 and 11. Mega Man 5, as far as I'm concerned, is the best one in the series so far. However, it is also one of the worst selling ones from my understanding, and it had nothing to do with the quality of the product as a whole. Mega Man 5 is the game with the most interesting gimmicks and overall level design. It encourages exploration by hiding a lot of collectibles around the level, and rewarding those who go out of their way with extra rewards. In the game, there are these letters in each stage that when put together spell out Mega Man V. What, don't look at me, it's the letter V. That you pronounce it 5 ain't my problem. The game also has stellar weapons that I remember using constantly, like the anti-gravity weapon or the shield or the cyclone thingy. A lot of the weapons were just really useful overall. Many stages differ from each other, like in one you're going from top to bottom thanks to anti-gravity, and another one you're riding a vehicle through the water and it even has a boss section, and another one you're going up in elevators and such, and another one you're going through a place filled to the brim with crystals, and another one you are infiltrating a battlefield. I am in a war, oh damn! The level aesthetics are once more really well made and push the NES to its limits without sacrificing stable gameplay. I mean, look at this looks absolutely stunning for NES standards. May I remind you that Super Mario Bros. Look like that? So, if the game is constantly introducing more mechanics that are well implemented into the flow of the adventure, if the game so far is the best version of the formula perfected by Mega Man 2, then why is it that the game sold like crap and barely anyone talked about it? Why is it that the game, despite being my favorite, is one that I could barely muster over 300 words of discussion out of, when in Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 I've got way more than that? It's because it's simply more of the same. If I did not have any of the borders through Mega Man 4, 5, and 6, debatably also 3 and to some extent 2, you have not been able to tell them apart unless you really knew the particular stages. Hell, I just tricked you. None of the respective games had the right footage on. This was all Mega Man 3. The games failed to be anything but more of the same, and people quickly lost interest. Back to the Mario example, Mario 1 and Mario 3 look completely different, have a different structure, have different powers, and feel completely different to play. While by all means, if I've played Mega Man 2, I've, by extension, to a lesser degree, played another 4 games in the series, 5 counting the first game. Hell, if we're willing to count 7 through 11, the entire series basically.
I still have another game to cover, just leave me alone and let me be on my taskbar already.
You may have noticed I barely mentioned Mega Man 6, and that's because apart from maybe the stages, there really is nothing new that this game does. The game adds 2 extra armors, one of them allowing temporarily fly, while the other one packs a literal punch, and while both of them are pretty fun, it doesn't really change the game enough. This is simply a not as good Mega Man 5, it has interesting boss designs and level theming. Some may argue the most creative theming so far, and for the most part I can agree with their sentiments. Having to be careful in one stage because there are enemies that light up oil, making it a one-hit hazard, exploring the castle and exploring the Wild West, I don't know what the hell this one is, but the point here is that the game has some of the most creative ideas so far. However, I feel like the levels themselves didn't go... And the writing! The levels feel like more of the same. I really don't know what other way to describe it. Apart from the theming, there is really nothing I really remember about any of them. And that may be because I play all of these games back to back and my soul is a bit shattered after doing so. However, I can definitely recall some things about other games which I've played back to back. It's just that Mega Man feels like level packs. Some levels are better than others, but at the end of the day, they are pretty much all the same thing. Mega Man 2 was the one that added the most to the series, and it is also the one that leaves the strongest impression musically, gameplay-wise, and in first impressions. It may not be the best game in the series, but it certainly has a great balance of everything that other games did well. As I mentioned previously, you play one, you've played all. So why buy the other games when you already have the one that most people consider the best? Well, to be a contrarian, but...
Mega Man on the NES is an example that no matter how good your games are, if you make the same game over and over again, eventually it will come back to bite you in the ass. Yeah, if I had to rank the games in any way, just I'll probably rank it like this. First comes 5, probably 2 or 4, afterwards maybe 6, and at the bottom is probably 3 and 1, but even further at the bottom is going to be my mental sanity, because clearly to make this video I had to have had none of it and thought I was overrated in the first place.